Welcome to Inside Magazine. I'm David Matlin. Well, today we have a heavy story for you. On August 1st, shortly after the start of one of the ceasefire periods between Israel and Hamas during the war in Gaza, 2 Israeli soldiers were killed near the city of Rafiah in the southern Gaza Strip. One of the fatalities was Major Bnaya Sarel, the commander of an elite Israeli unit. In 2008, Bnaya was one of 8 cadets in Bnaya, the IDF Officers Training Academy, who were filmed for a TV documentary series. Our cameras followed him for months during his course until he graduated and officially became a combat officer of the Israel Defense Force. Well, this is the story of Bnaya Sarel, whose death in Gaza brought many in Israel to tears. Here's the film by Noam Shalev for I-24 News. August 1st, 2014, Operation Protective Edge. The ceasefire between Israel and Hamas went into effect at 8 in the morning. A force from the Givati Brigade Reconnaissance Unit was in charge of a sector in the rural region adjacent to the city of Rafiah and was focusing on searching for tunnel openings. Suddenly, there was an explosion followed by gunfire from several directions. This armed encounter would become one of the important events of the war. However, our story begins 7 years previously in the Etzion block. 2 young soldiers on leave, David Rubin and Achikam Amichai, went hiking on foot in the wadi near Hebron. They were brutally murdered by terrorists.
There was a kind of agreement with him that we wouldn't go to each other's funerals. We'd go for a walk. It's just sad and just a waste of time. Last night, we broke that agreement.
In 2008, we were asked to produce a series of documentary films on the Combat Officers Training Course at Training Base 1, the jewel in the crown of the IDF. This is a grueling 7-month course that takes place in the Negev and training areas throughout Israel.
Relatively speaking, you've chosen a crappy profession. You're faced with mental demands, physical demands, and a great deal of personal responsibility, and really very few happy moments, and even those don't last long.
For the very first time, a film crew was given almost unlimited access to the procedure that transforms soldiers into commanders.
So welcome to the officers' school, and from here, at the end of the process, you will depart with one thing. And do you know what that is? That's a toolbox. And in that toolbox, you will have the tools that you will use to succeed in your mission. You must win the next war.
Of the dozens of cadets on the course, one fighter from Givati stood out, Bnaya Sarel, son of a family of settlers from Kiryat Arba.
The way this course is constructed is that everyone is for himself. The threat of dismissal is constantly hovering over your head. And me too, I'm also... Listen, there are all kinds of struggles in life. I'm a religious person. Sometimes you're weaker, and other times you're stronger. In the end, it's a matter of faith, complex things between a person and his creator.
Our cameras followed him throughout all stages of officers' course.
From time to time, we encountered a civilian population. Some of them were not hostile, while others were. I didn't encounter things like people going into homes, breaking stuff and looting. These phenomena, unfortunately, do occur. In the end, we're an army of kids who are conscripted at the age of 18, each with his weaknesses and his questions in life and his dilemmas. There's nothing you can do about it. It's something very, very complicated. On the one hand, to remain professional, while on the other, to stay human. But I think that in the end, the term professional, from it everything is derived.
After a few months in officers' course, we sought to understand from Bnaya where he grew up, to see from where he absorbed his cultural and ideological outlook on life. which transformed him into a prominent cadet who everyone was convinced would become an outstanding officer.
This is already Hebron, the outskirts of Hebron. This was once the peace grocery store that was transformed into the Palestine grocery store. It's called Beit Omar, the settlement. Here, there were shooting attacks on the roads. Everywhere you go, every cave you enter, some great historical figure walked in that same place. To me, it's moving. I feel a sense of belonging. I feel very strong when I walk around this country.
Ceramic Hill in Kiryat Arba is a place of absolute ideology. But as it transpired with this 20-year-old soldier who'd grown up here, we discovered independent and mature thinking.
What's happening?
Hi, Bnaya. How are you doing?
Army causes you to think about many issues that otherwise you would not have given a thought to. About death, about wars. If you need this or don't need that, what it is to be a fighting officer, a soldier in a combat unit. Your profession is ultimately to defend the country, and that means to fight. And in the end, you're also compelled to kill. And that's something about which you ask yourself questions.
Bnaya was born right at the beginning of the First Intifada. He lived through a very difficult period. I think that as much as I wouldn't, at the outset, have chosen a hard life for my children, in fact, I feel that he is far strengthened and far more prepared for those challenges, which have taken me many years of working on myself in order to face them.
They say that you create the best friendships in the army. In actual fact, I think that my closer friends are from the yeshiva. You also see David and Achikam. I imagine the day when I and the fighters in the team under my command have to go and capture those bastards and settle accounts with them. The personal and general account I have with them. You undergo all kinds of hardships, both in the army and in your daily life, in the outside world, in civilian life. The murder of David and Achikam, which was something that shook you up really badly, and in the end, they really built you up. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied, and the more they spread abroad.
In Kiryat Arba, and particularly in the settlements in Judea, Samaria and Gaza, the religious community is very, very supportive of the army. There is a kind of rift that was born recently after Gush Katif. For instance, in my view, the soldiers who expelled are criminals. If my son had done something like that, I would never have forgiven him, really. And I very much hope that Bnaya truly knows that he is going to the army to do what he really needs to do. But if he is obliged to do things that are not in the spirit of Judaism, he should not do them.
Where is the Omega?
The Omega? Here it is, beyond that ridge. Shalom. We're not fighting for something, some piece of land. There's a far greater struggle than that. We're looking for quiet. We all want quiet. We all want peace. But we want real peace. We don't want a peace that will afterwards blow up on buses. I'm not fighting against the Arabs. That is, I'm not. There are Arabs with whom there are good neighborly relations. The peace doesn't have to come from giving up your identity. It has come from deepening your identity, to understand what the identity of the Jewish people is and what their identity is. And out of this, peace will come, from separateness, not from blurring our identity as a Jewish people. We don't have any other country.
The combat officers' course is drawing to a close. The cadets are being assigned to their units, and Colonel Aharon Haliva is beginning to sum up the course when a severe credibility crisis develops between him and Bnaya, who'd been assigned to a different unit from the one he'd requested.
Yes.
Bnaya Sarel, Jacket Battalion, Kiryat Arba. I have a very strong feeling that in 2 days' time, I will finish officer's course, and there's a great deal of disregard on the part of a very great number of factors in the military system.
Where is the problem with the disregard? I don't understand.
I settled on a position in a certain place.
You settled on a position?
Yes, I was in an interview, protocol, summary.
You settled on a position?
It was settled for me. It doesn't matter.
It's the right of the system. It's the right of the system.
It's also my right to sign a waiver now, and it's my right to leave the army and not give more than 3 years, and it's also the right of everyone else here. We expect fair treatment.
Listen, the award ceremony will take place later. You're welcome. And also, if you want to sign a waiver for whatever reason, to this too you are welcome. Up front, I don't like your attitude, and you know why? Because you don't yet know that you are a part of this system and you are threatening me. I can sign a waiver. Go wherever you want. You are living within a system. Don't threaten this system. The system is you and how you appear, how we all appear. You are all part of the system. The army is not mine and not yours. It belongs to all of us. We have a responsibility to give our lives for this country, and not everyone can have conditions. For the 30 soldiers that will be conscripted to Shaked in another week or two, you are the entire system. For their parents, you are the entire system. There's nobody else, nobody. There's no other address. You are their platoon commander from Kiryat Arba, and you are the address for everything. You'll be a great platoon commander in Shaked, and you'll do everything you think necessary for your soldiers so that they'll be good soldiers and follow after you. And you'll be an example for them how to deal with people. For them, for your fellow platoon commanders with you, and your company commander. Amen. Sit.
They made a mistake with you. It's clear to the whole world. It's clear to you, it's clear to me. Here there was an error of the system and of everyone. Now move forward.
I'm moving forward.
Move forward. Forget about a discharge. Good luck.
And Bnaya was left with one more exercise until the end of the course, fighting in a training facility that simulated an urban area, and at the conclusion, a Hannibal event, the kidnapping of a soldier, an exercise that would become a reality in just a few years' time.
What is the most critical event that could happen to us? Kidnapping. And in view of this, we are operating. The terrorists have begun to run in that direction. What do?
Charge at them!
What do you mean open fire at them? You run after them and bring them down. While charging, you shoot at them and bring them down, okay? And let's assume they've retreated across the border. What do?
Cut the fence and go in.
Okay, good. Yalla, come.
Hannibal, declaring Hannibal.
We have Hannibal for the mosque.
They have kidnapped my soldier from C unit. You receive? I have someone kidnapped from my force. Do you receive?
Some choose to wear red boots and a red beret. Some choose today to wear the striped beret, or the olive green beret, or the purple beret, or the brown beret, or any other beret of the infantry fighters. Everyone takes into account that he is conscripted into service and may not return home alive. Why is that a secret? Why is it unpleasant? Why shouldn't you speak about it? You should speak about it and explain why that is, because in this way you can explain to people while looking them directly in the eyes the justness of our way. In Western society and in a developed country, it is right to sanctify human life. But in the army of a democratic society, of a democratic country, you also have to tell the fighters that in order to sanctify the lives of our citizens, we may be injured.
2 months before Operation Protective Edge, Bnaya Sarel was appointed commander of the reconnaissance unit of the Givati Brigade, one of the IDF's elite units. On the 31st of July, ahead of the beginning of the ceasefire, the correspondent Yossi Yehoshua met Bnaya on the outskirts of Rafiah.
We entered a house that was full of weapons, a fighting house in this regard, with dozens of RPG launchers, hand grenades, communications equipment.
All these firearms, all these weapons, everything was ready to be used. Our estimate was that the terrorists had fled shortly before we arrived.
I saw a humble officer, a professional, the kind that people look up to in admiration. And when we left the house, which was relatively safe, and went out to a less safe place, despite everything, I insisted and took out my personal camera and asked him if I could photograph him. He agreed to be photographed and I took his picture, and this is probably the last picture of him.
The next day, an hour and a quarter after the beginning of the ceasefire, Bnaya and his radio operator were killed in an encounter with a Hamas terrorist squad in Rafiah.
Perhaps I'm unworldly. Perhaps I'm naive. What I'm dealing with is fighting and preparing my fighters for war. Time will tell. Perhaps I'll find myself in a different place.
Thank you for being with us for this moving story of a young man who gave his life for his country. Well, I'm David Matlin, and we'll see you again here next week at the same time.